Okay, hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Water Break. We're looking back on a disappointing start to the All-Ireland series for the Clare footballers, and to do so, we're joined by two men who know their football, or at least think they do. We've Sean Rouine, Ennistymon footballer, who's also leading a bit of a football revolution with Buckhurry's football club out west. And we have Derek Dormer, a name and face that's becoming more popular by the week. Also, I believe, has experience in leading Clarecastle's footballers to junior championship glory. So,
Well, you started with an insult, but at least you finished with a compliment. That's the main thing, Paddy.
yeah, so we'll start with obviously Saturday disappointment, Cusack Park. Derek, we'll go to you first. Donegal game was probably seen as the most winnable of Clare's three in the All-Ireland series. So how much of a setback is it that we didn't start with a win?
Yeah, it's massive. It really is. I I hate to sound pessimistic, but I think that's our year over. I just can't see how we go to Clones and get a result. And Derry do seem to have our measure over the last couple of years, no matter be it Croke Park or above in that own big centre of excellence. They just seem to have our measure. We seem to struggle with teams with systems, and Derry are the most orientated team in the country. I was extremely confident going into the Donegal game that we'd have a bounce back from the Kerry game, and that we'd put it up to them. I don't rate Donegal that highly. I think they're poor, and we probably should have had a better lead at halftime. But the second half really was, and I hate to say it, but it was just abysmal. It really was. Clare didn't lay a glove on Donegal and allowed them to shoot for fun without any pressure. And if you give an inter-county footballer 5-6 seconds, 40 yards out to kick it, they're not going to miss. And that's just seemed to be the whole story of the second half. It's backs to the wall stuff now, but I think we need to tear up the script myself and just change our approach. It does not work. This zonal defence is, for me, it's not right. We have to go man on man. Yes, put numbers back. I understand that, but mark the six forwards first and foremost. You want extra bodies back there. I understand that, but this just marking space, it's just not working. That's my opinion. It really is.
Okay, and we'll go on to systems and approaches in the next couple of minutes or so. But Sean, would you share a similar viewpoint that it is it salvageable basically?
It's going to be very difficult for sure. It's going to be a very big ask to go up to Clones and take points off of them in Monaghan. I think you'd hope that there's a very big game in them. Maybe there was a bit of a fatigue or tiredness coming out of Killarney or out of Kerry from that day, from the Munster final, or Gaelic Grounds, I should say. But I do think it's going to be very difficult, and there definitely needs to be a big increase in performance.
And just to go back 6 weeks or so, Derek, Colm Collins, his championship highlight, beating Cork in Cusack Park, and then within the space of 6 weeks, arguably his lowest point to lose to Donegal. So where do you think it went wrong in that period of time, like Sean referenced the Munster final?
I think, and again, no, I don't want to be critical. I think it just went right against Cork in the second half because it was, okay, we don't do something different, we're out of the championship. We pushed up on Cork kickouts. We forced them to kick long. We got in their face. And we were far better than a 1 point winning margin in the end. Yeah, look, Cusack Park erupted. Killian ran, what a fantastic score. And, it was a great play. Kieran Russell busting up the field. And it was a lovely moment to see. But again, it's just me, but I think pound for pound, we're a better football team than Cork. I think if you asked Jack O'Connor to come up and pick a 15 between Clare and Cork, there'd be more Clare players on it than Cork players. So, but I think after that, we struggled against Limerick. I mean, it papered over the cracks that Limerick are poor, and against Kerry, I think that, the whole occasion kind of got to us. I think without sounding anyway, and I don't mean this to come across wrong, but, what the Cliffords went through probably made sure that Kerry weren't going to be complacent. They came out with a determination and a steady focus, and they blew us out of the water. But again, we were at that zonal defence, and it seems that we're not laying a glove on anyone. You can just saunter through the Clare defence, pop passes to runners off shoulder and create overlaps at your ease. And we seem to be struggling with that. And I'm not on about dark arts here, but like you do gotta, hit someone, and I mean legitimately hit them. I mean shoulder to shoulder. Like it's a contact sport, and our defense just doesn't seem to be making contact. So I think the Donegal game was a highlight of, not a highlight, but it was, as a whole, it showed the Clare footballing year just inconsistent. Good first half, abysmal second half, and we've been like that in every game. 6 points up against Kildare, 6 points up against Dublin. It just seems we don't have a 60-minute performance in us for whatever the reason is. I can't explain it, but it's just been a completely inconsistent year. And I think our approach is wrong. I don't think we're a system-built team. I think we play our best football instinctively, aggressively, high pressing and off the cuff stuff. I think if we're hamstring into a system, that we just get overturned far too easily down the middle. And if you overturn a team, Sean had known from his playing days, I mean, if you get overturned out wide, you have a chance to regroup. But overturned down the middle, it's a simple pass. And if you give it to an inter-county forward with time to kick it, they're going to score, Paddy. So, like, I'm at a loss at where do we go from here. I'm very, very disappointed because I was fully convinced we'd beat Donegal. And I think we should be beating Donegal. I don't rate Donegal at all. I think that, we'd have far better forwards than Donegal. Keelan Sexton, Emmett Mahon, Owen Cleary. I mean, we've lads that can score. We've a better bench than Donegal. I'm at a loss, really. It was so disappointing.
And just there's a lot in that there, but just two things, Sean, to put you. The first one, maybe to correct for the record, the most mispronounced surname in Clare football is probably your own surname. If you want to correct it for Derek, I think we might have had a mispronunciation.
I think we've had two. I think you mispronounced it, and I think Derek did as well.
Good man, Sean. Good man,
Yeah.
Sean. Don't let him off the hook.
Yeah, it's Rouine.
Yeah, fair enough. And then the second one, as a master of the dark arts yourself, Derek, is saying maybe we don't have it enough. So is that lacking, do you think, from Clare's approach?
No, first of all, I wouldn't like to consider myself a master of the dark arts, but there's definitely a lot of players there who are rugged and tough, and I wouldn't say that players are lacking in aggression or anything like that, but it is definitely evident that I suppose we are leaking goal chances, and I suppose today in the Munster final we could have even conceded a couple of them more if Kerry had scored them, but we did concede goal chances, and we do seem to get the bodies back, but I'm afraid we're not getting the tackles and contacts on as best as we'd like to be.
And just on the defensive side then as well, Sean, like maybe it's unfair to say it's Brian Carson's influence, but we do seem to be a bit more defensive in the years he's been involved. So like they did go from conceding 5 goals against Kerry to conceding none against Donegal. So did they get that right? And maybe just to give the perspective of getting the balance right between having an attacking focused approach and then being overly defensive.
Yeah, I think one of the key stats from the Donegal game was, and it's not even talking about defensive structures, I think we had something like 25% conversion rate in the second half, which anyone will know that you're not going to win games with that type of shot conversion rate. So that was definitely a big thing against Donegal. But in terms of the defensive structure, look, I think every team is playing defensively. Even you look at Dublin, Kerry, they all get bodies back. It's just about getting them back and getting them in the right places and getting those contacts on, as Derek was saying. But look, it's very tricky. It's hard to know. We are getting the bodies back for sure, but I suppose communication needs to be 100% to make sure that everyone's doing their job, and it's not easy.
And just to stick with you again, Sean, for one more, obviously Ennistymon had a positive run last year, reaching a county final, first time since 2018, but a lot of people would have labelled you as being overly defensive. So just as a player, what's it like playing in maybe a setup where it's more defensive orientated?
Yeah, look, I suppose a lot of clubs around the county and people would be saying that we were very defensive, and I suppose to a point that we were getting bodies back, but I would say every other club was getting bodies back too. I suppose we were holding the ball, holding possession quite a lot, which was probably giving clubs a bit of a chance to say that we were extra defensive. But what's it like playing in a system like that? Yeah, it takes a lot of hard work. There's a lot of bodies getting back. You've got your wing forwards coming back. I'd say every club and county team now has their wing forwards working. It's a very difficult shift in 10 and 12. and the communication has to be 100%. If one person's not doing the job, there's gonna be holes appearing in the defense, and it's gonna cause problems for sure. But yeah, it takes a lot of work to get it right, a lot of training and a lot of walkthroughs, things like that, and everybody needs to be on the same page. But because, as I said, it only takes one person for it all to go wrong.
Absolutely. Derek, back to yourself then, just from seeing the team announced when it was announced Thursday, Friday, Daniel Walsh at wing forward for the first time, did you get an inkling then that maybe it was going to be more defensive than attack focused from Clare?
Yeah, I just before I say go on about that, I just want to reference what Sean said there. He is right. Like, all teams are defensive minded now, and if you look at the back-to-back county champions, Éire, and probably favourites to do 3 in a row, they lose possession. It's en masse, turn and get in bodies inside their own 45. But the difference with Éire and we'll say Clare at the moment is that Éire's 6 backs will mark the 6 forwards, and Clare are just marking space. And he's right, everyone plays defensively, but Clare are playing zonal defence. And to me, in every sport, zonal marking doesn't work. If you just take soccer, for example, you zonal defence from a corner and suddenly the ball's in the back of net and you're wondering why. It's because you're not marking a man. Your job as a defender is to mark your man. And even you go back to the glory days of Clare hurling, for an example, Michael O'Halloran wouldn't touch a sliotar. But by God, the corner forward wouldn't touch it either. And, he'd come off the field scoreless. And that's your job done as a defender. Your job as a defender is to make sure the forward doesn't score. Doesn't matter if you have 10 possessions. And I think that's an issue we need to look at. Your job is to defend. You have attackers up the field who'll kick it over. Your primary job is to stop them scoring. When I saw the team, I knew it was a case of, okay, we're going to play Donegal at their own game. And that worried me. It was like when we went to Derry. We played Derry at their own game. And you're not going to beat a team. Donegal are playing that defensive football and that style, crowding out the defence, long before Jim McGuinness even. I mean, it's just in their DNA up there. It's not in our DNA. It really isn't. Because, even go back to the county final that Sean took part in, when Ennistymon did have to push up and Éire forced their hand late on in the game, they created goal chance. And they looked like they could win that county final because they had to push up and push on. And again, I'm not being negative towards Ennistymon. He's right. They do hold possession a lot longer than other teams. And that's because they're waiting for the runner inside before they deliver the ball. But, every team plays defensive. It's just how you defensively play is the issue. Clare, unfortunately, it's zonal. And that's the real problem. You cannot win matches playing zonal defense. In my opinion, you have to mark your man.
Sean, not that we're going awfully focusing on the club championship, but arguably one of the standout players for Éire the last 2 years has been Gavin Cooney, who's a name we mentioned the last day as well, and David Lernahan had kind of mentioned that maybe he should be brought in to shake things up a bit. Are you surprised in any way, given that he arguably, as I said, has been one of the standouts at club level, that he's not getting more game time with the county team?
Look, I suppose if you look at his club form over the last probably 3 years, he is an exceptional forward. It's very hard to mark. We know that he's sucker punched us a few times at under 16 and minor. We know all about him up here in Ennistymon. But I suppose the big thing is, like, you have to see who's going well in training, and they see Colm Collins and Coughlin, Brian Carson. They see a lot more of them than we see of them. Like, they get probably 100 pitch sessions in, or 70 or 80 pitch sessions in, whereas we probably just see him in the games. And look, to be fair, Keelan is flying it. Keelan's probably been our best forward this year, I'd say, throughout the league. And I suppose with getting the bodies back, you have to look at the way Clare are playing, and they do tend to get a lot of bodies back. Like, Gavin is an out and out inside corner forward. I'm not sure if the defensive the system that we're playing suits him all that well. But definitely there's room for Gavin. If we do look to go a bit more attacking, I think. So I suppose, again, coming back to the point, it's comes down to see what they're looking for and what they're seeing on the training pitch. So I suppose it's easy to judge from afar, isn't it?
Yeah, fair enough. Derek, just Keelan Sexton as well, name mentioned, arguably playing the best football he's playing for Clare, but a similarity that's creeping into the game, definitely against Kerry, and again at the weekend, just not getting fed with possession at all, which is a major thing that needs to be rectified.
Yeah, it does. And again, what Sean said is right. Like, Clare aren't set up to benefit Gavin Cooney, so, and I think similarly, when you have a forward of Keelan's ability, I think you need to like play in a way that benefits him. And again, I think we're too pedestrian at times. Yeah, we can transition from defence into attack at pace, but you know, you're talking about a lot of bodies inside the 45. I don't agree with that style of football. I don't think it benefits us. I'd like to see three, even four. Four is probably a bit too much, but definitely three forwards, like on the inside line, holding their positions. Because you know the double benefit of it is the defenders have to stay there and mark them. If they don't, you have a man inside all on his own, and you suddenly can kick a 40-yard pass into him, and you know it's 3v2 in there. So you're forcing them back. You're forcing the opposition. And I always think that in sport, you have to have faith in your own ability, one. But I think the better teams are proactive, Paddy, rather than reactive. We're going to do this, you know, and we're going to do that. We're not going to react to what you do. And again, you know, I think Clare have been very reactive. They decide on their setup based on the opposition, whereas I would be deciding on our setup based on the ability of the players we have at our disposal. And we do have some top forwards in this county. Emmett McMahon, as I said, and Keelan and so on, Owen Cleary, Podge Collins. But you also have Gavin Cooney, Mark McInerney. Like, we have an abundance of them. And I just don't think we're set up to reap the benefits of having those forwards. I think we should have more faith in our own ability. Stop pandering to the opposition. Stop setting up because we're playing Monaghan or we're playing Donegal or whoever. Let them react to us. That'd be my mantra going forward. We play our style. Let them change to adapt to us.
If you were appointed manager or coach in the morning with Clare team, are we playing the wrong style, or what style would you like to see them go out with in the next two games?
Oh God! First of all, I wouldn't like to be appointed that job. It's a very tricky job to do. But yeah, I definitely would like to see maybe a little bit more of a quicker transition. This ponderous, probably hand passing doesn't really suit us, and it doesn't play to, I suppose, like Keelan, who's a brilliant ball winner inside. I thought Donegal left a lot of space in front of Keelan as well, that we could have exploited it a little bit better. Definitely, I think we can work on the transition. Like, so when we're working out from the back, just moving it that little bit quicker would probably benefit us. We've got runners there like Kieran Russell, Pierce, even Darren O'Neill, phenomenal athletes. Manis is getting up the field quite often. Like, if they can go at pace, similar to what Aerogue do with, you know, Ian O'Connor and Russell, they work very well together. If we could maybe just transition out of it from the back a little bit quicker, I think it would benefit the forwards, and hopefully maybe we get a few more scores off then.
And Derek, it's just one of the things Derek Keane has touched on in his column, that we have lads with long-term injuries, possibly, that are getting out in the field. Is it hindering us in a way that we might be playing lads that aren't at 100%, because we could see certain lads played a lot better for Donegal than we should have? So just to kind of throw that one towards you.
Well, it's never good you'll get away with it at a club level. Like, if you're 90% fit, you'll get away with it at a club level. You will not get away with it at inter-county level. I mean, what those lads go through to prepare, what they sacrifice, and you'd know from playing for your hurling and Sean, even at club level now, to be competitive and to get to the business end of a club championship. You're talking 2 days in the gym, you're talking diet, you're talking sleep, no alcohol, you know, running in the fields for November and the slog in January. The effort that is required to just be competitive, never mind winning, it's incredible. Like, and I take my hats off to every single player at club level and county level that put in those efforts. So I would never be disrespectful towards them. I don't think you should ever play a fella that's 90% unless you're talking about the Gooch Cooper or, you know, or Tony Kelly, for example. Like, you're talking about the creme de la creme, and I'd gamble on them because they're so important, and at any given moment they could win you a match because they have a moment of genius in them. But after that, you need 100% fitness, because the contact, unfortunately, we're not making enough contact, but the contact is so ferocious. I mean, I go back a few years ago, and there was a recorded shoulder. It was at a coaching conference I was at, and that recorded shoulder in the All-Ireland football semi-final was recorded on some machine that records the level of hit anyway, but it was a bigger hit than in American football that took place in the Super Bowl. I mean, these lads are unbelievable athletes, what the efforts they put in. So I don't think you should be putting a machine of an athlete, for want of a better word, out unless he's 100%. That's just my opinion.
Was that one of the Clarecastle juniors that had the shoulder that year, or?
You wouldn't know. Yeah. Well, if I was in charge, it definitely was anyway.
Yeah. Sean, just on personnel there that could potentially come into it, or to shake things up, like Brian Mack showed well in the Munster final when he came on, maybe didn't get on as much ball, but is there anyone kind of standing out for you that could make an impact over the next 2 games?
Yeah, I think we're lucky that we do have kind of a very good panel there. Brian Mack, you mentioned, I thought he was outstanding for the Clare under-20s. He really, really does look to be a phenomenal athlete. So I look, he's there. He's there for one of the lads if they get injured, or potentially maybe from the start. Depends how training is going and how bodies are after Donegal. I'd like to see maybe Ikem getting a little bit more game time as well. I think again he's a phenomenal athlete. Unbelievable power, strength, speed, and his football has come on an awful lot over the last 3 or 4 years as well. So he should be in the shake-up. Then you've got Alan Sweeney, who's been very reliable there over the years. Gavin Cooney, like the strength and depth is there. So it's just a matter of getting the best 15, the fittest 15 on the pitch, and giving it a right lash, because they need a massive performance now up in Clonus.
Yeah, and Derek, I'll put the question to you now rather than Sean, because Sean could get the consequences of it in the club championship later on in the year. But Sean has mentioned the names of lads potentially come in. Is there anyone standing out for you that we should potentially maybe give a break the next day?
Well, I'd agree with Sean. With Ikem Ugwueru should be starting. I'd start him on any team I'd be involved in, because he's powerful. He's a ball carrier. He will not overturn possession. The best left to foul him to take it off him. So for me, he's worth his weight in gold, because you give him the ball, he can carry it 40, 50 yards. And as I say, you will not dispossess the man without fouling him. Sean's right. His football ability has come on. His kicking has come on. I would start Gavin Cooney all day, every day. I really would, because in the blink of an eye, he could have won 2. And, I'd be playing Keelan and Gavin in an inside forward line, and then Monaghan. And I'd be drifting players back out the field, wing forwards back out, creating a space in front of them, and I'd be a little bit more direct. I'd be popping passes into those sort of players. Brian McNamara has been impressive for the Clare under-20s. Is he ready for the step up to inter-county? Why not? I mean, the definition of madness is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, So we have nothing to lose now. I mean, this was our winnable game at home. If we had one, it'd probably be enough to see us into the last 12. I think that's what it's called. So if we go up to Clonus and do exactly what we've been doing, there is no other outcome but Monaghan by 5 or 6. If we go up and go gung-ho and say, do you know what? Let's have a right cut off them. Let's play attack-minded players. Let's push up. Let's force them into kicking long. Let's try and overturn in their half of the field, rather than waiting for them to come into our half. Let's overturn up the field, because that's the biggest thing. If you overturn a team breaking out of defence inside their half, you're one kick away from the ball in the back of the net. We got to be a bit more adventurous, Paddy.
Sean, we've seen it earlier in the year, like Clare relegated from Division 2, but they responded very well, as we mentioned 6 weeks ago, to beat Cork, to beat Limerick, to get to first Munster final since 2012. So, like, we know it's within the characters there, within the panel, to bounce back. So, like, Derek wrote him off at the start of the year. We could have ended the podcast with his first contribution, but can you see a bounce back basically in Clonus?
I wouldn't rule it out. It's going to be very, very difficult. But this team, I think they have shown a lot of character over the years. They've been fighting in Division 2 there and doing quite well in Division 2. Very close to being promoted there a couple of times, albeit probably close to being relegated a couple of times as well. But they have shown great character, and I think with Colm there, I think there's surely a big game in them. One more big splash for the year. Look, they've nothing to lose now, as Derek said. They may as well go out with all guns blazing. They've already, given us a couple of good days this year, albeit getting relegated to Division 3 was quite disappointing. But big win over Cork and getting to a Munster final. So that was big. And I think the leaders are there in the team, likes of Owen Cleary, Jamie Malone, Keelan, Kieran Ross, a lot of experienced lads there, Cathal O'Connor, Darren O'Neill. The team's full of experience. And I think that there is definitely a big game in them. Now it's going to be a big ask going up north twice. Well, one of them is neutral, but I think I think Monaghan could be winnable. If everything goes right, we will need a massive 70 minutes, and I think Derek said that as well. The trend seems to be that we do seem to be falling off a little bit in the second half of games. which is disappointing. But if we can give in a performance for 70 minutes, I do think there's a big game in us, and I'd be positive enough that we could get a win out of Monaghan.
Okay, we'll go over to Mr. Negative there. So for a second,
Hang on, no, a minute. No, hang on. I love football, right? And I love Clare football, and I wouldn't be negative about Colm Collins. What he's done is remarkable. And as I said, any of those players, the efforts they have to put in, you have to just take your hat off them. My point is, if we continue to do the same things, there will only be one outcome. But if we change our approach and we become a bit more adventurous, yeah, why can't we beat Monaghan? I mean, Monaghan are no world beaters, but I just feel that if we play to the system and the zonal defence and all that, they will beat us because that's their game. It's not our game. I don't want to come across too negative. If we throw the shackles off, I think we can beat Monaghan. I don't rate Derry that highly either, but that's just me. I wouldn't have them in the top 4 or 5 teams in Ireland. I just think that teams get over complicated by playing them with the system. Push up on Derry, they're not that great. Force them into making mistakes, and you can beat Derry too. I mean, honest to God, Clare have 5 or 6 footballers that make most teams. So I just think we're underperforming at the moment. And I think it's because of this zonal marking in defence. I think that is the core problem we have. If we go man on man, we're a far better unit.
and just Derek, you famously predicted a 1-point win 6 weeks ago for Clare against Cork. So if I was to get you to pin your colours to the mast now and just to move slightly off the fence and say Clare Monaghan, who's going to win?
Oh God. Oh, my heart says Clare, obviously. Do I think they'll change their approach? No, I don't think they will. Therefore, I think Monaghan will win by 3 or 4 points. If they change their approach, it could be a huge day in Clonus. If they stop the zonal defence and go man on man and get bodies back, of course, you have to. But get bodies back to make contact, not to mark space, Paddy. That's my big thing. Marking space is no good. Like, you got to mark the man. If we mark the man, Monaghan are no world beaters. And Clare definitely have the footballers to beat Monaghan. And Sean did say it, like, there's always a big performance in us, be it going up to Roscommon or, there's always one big one. I don't think we've had our big performance yet. That would give me optimism. I think we're better than Cork. I think we showed we're better than Cork. And I'm delighted we did beat Cork for the first time in 20 odd years in the championship. Can we do it against Monaghan? Do you know what? We can. Actually, do you know what? We can. I have to go with my heart. I have to.
That's some turnaround in. It must be.
Yeah, well, my heart always rules my
roundabout.
head. It always rules my head.
Yeah. Sean, just to go to yourself as well. Like we have seen patches and stuff from Clare, but like it is back to the wall now. And the Cork game will be quickly forgotten if the year ends in Clare getting relegated from the league and failing to get a win in the All-Ireland series. So do you think that the backs are to the wall that will lead to the performance we're looking for and talking about?
You'd have to hope so. As you said, the backs are to the wall now. It's I think we obviously have to beat Monaghan or Derry to get into the last 12. And there's a possibility that one win might not even be enough now after losing to Donegal if results go against you. Do I think Clare can do it? Absolutely, I do. Do I think it's going to need our best performance of the year? Absolutely. I think there's definitely another gear in us, and if we don't find it, I think we could be coming home with our tails between our legs. But it'll take 70 minutes. It'll take 70 minutes of the second half performance that we had against Cork. We can't be coming in and out of games in patches. If we are doing that, I'm afraid I can see us shipping a 5 or 6 point loss, as Derek said. But I do think the players are good enough to go up to Monaghan and get a result. It's just a matter of getting everything right, getting the heads right as well. I suppose there's 2 losses now in a row coming from Kerry and Donegal. They might be a little bit deflated. So that's going to be very important. Is can they get themselves back up for a big battle up in Monaghan? And if they do, and if everything goes right, I wouldn't rule out us coming back from Monaghan with a win.
Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But whatever happens, anyway, Derek is right, seeing he's predicted a Monaghan win and a Clare win all within the space of 30 minutes.
Yeah. Talk about sitting on the fence.
Yeah. So, and also Derek spoke very well about zonal approaches and listening to feedback, and obviously at the Clare Echo, very keen to hear from our subscribers. We took on board a lot of feedback. They said they'd prefer to have a bit more eye candy on, so we tried to get Rouine We settled for Sean instead, but hopefully that'll work. And Derek Dormer, delighted to have him on board after his suspension with Ballybrown has been lifted. We were waiting for that to get cleared
Yeah.
so that we could have you on board. So many thanks to Sean and to Derek for their contributions and analysis, and hopefully the clouds will slightly part and we might get over Monaghan in 2 weeks' time. Thanks, lads.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, million.